Hey there, fight friends. Welcome to the MMA show, the show about Canadian mixed martial arts and only Canadian mixed martial arts. My name is Andy Cotterill. I'll be your host for this episode and every other episode because it's just me. And this is a really big week for us, of course, because we have UFC Fight Night in Winnipeg this upcoming weekend on Saturday, April the 18th. Last year in 2025, we had the UFC come to Montreal. It was an amazing show. And this year, it's going to be no different. We've got 9 Canadians on the card, and we'll be talking about those briefly. Before we get to the UFC, though, let's talk about the other Canadians who are fighting elsewhere in the world. Legacy Fighting Alliance right here. Terrific American organization. Used to be on Fight Pass for years, just left, and they're now streaming with, I don't remember who they're streaming with, but I think I'll put the link on the show notes. And 2 Canadians are fighting this weekend, Kelton Sneevy and Devin Lozay. They're both amazing fighters. They're both from, and I'm going to get some grief for this one, but either from Thunder Bay or North Bay. It's hard to keep track, and I'm terrible, I know. Anyway, great interview with them on the show as well. Or sorry, they were on last week's MMA show. If you haven't seen it, a lot of opportunities for those 2 young men. Also, we have Tom Theocaris, who was the Canadian on The Ultimate Fighter last season. He is going to be fighting in Curacao, believe it or not. I've been to Curacao. It's a beautiful little island nation in the Caribbean. And then finally, we have heavyweight Jag Buhler, who is fighting down in, I'm going to say, Texas. I don't remember, but if you want to check for yourself, go right here to the upcoming fights page at mma.ca, which is my website, and you'll see a list of all the Canadian fighters fighting anywhere in the world. I keep this list updated daily, multiple times daily. And then when you're done looking at those guys, you can click on all those links, by the way, and see details of their fights and who they're fighting and where it's fighting and all that stuff. After you're done with those, you can scroll on down to the bottom and click on the UFC Winnipeg tab, and you can see what I'm about to read off to you right now, and you can look at that right here as well while I'm reading it along. So in the main event, of course, we have Mike Malott versus Gilbert Burns. This is a great opportunity. This is Mike's first main event in the UFC. And it's kind of come full circle between Mike and I, because I actually gave Mike his first ever post-fight interview. I'm going to say it was like 2010 or 2011 off the top of my head. I don't know. And that was when he was a skinny little 135-pound student in Halifax, Nova Scotia. It was after a show somewhere in Cape Breton, I think. And Gavin Tucker fought the same night, formerly of the UFC. They were, along with Pat Carroll, they were known as the Bash Brothers. So that was a terrific time. Mike has come a long way. And I'm so thrilled to see what he's achieved so far. He just made a big splash in the UFC. And to get in the UFC, period, is very difficult. But getting main event, holy moly, this is incredible. Next in the co-main event is Charles Jourdain, his royal airness. Now, as soon as we're done talking now, you're going to see the first interview today is going to be with Charles. Charles is one of my favorite interviews, and not even just interviews. He's one of my favorite people to talk to, period, because he's more than just a fighter. He's got a lot to say. He thinks a lot, and you'll hear he delves deeply later on in the show about Adlerian psychology after a guy named Adler, who I'd been very briefly familiar with. He was a counterpart of Friedrich Nietzsche. And Adlerian basically says, as Charles will explain to you if you want to hear, it's really cool, about how all of us as humans, if we want to ascend, if we want to become somebody new, we have to die. We have to kill our old selves, who we used to be, in order to become somebody new. Now, Charles is going to do a much better job at explaining it than I just did, so make sure you watch and hear it. And Charles has got so many interesting things. And yeah, it's always great to see him. Next, in the main card, first fight on the main card is going to be newcomer to the UFC, Canadian Mandel Nallo. You'll hear me when I say it to him in my interview with him. You'll see in a bit. For years, whenever people would talk about the UFC or talk about fighters and they want to know unknown Canadian fighters, and whenever they asked me who the best unknown Canadian fighter was, I would say without hesitation every single time, Mandel Nallo. Bellator veteran. He's absolutely incredible. First time I encountered Mandel was also early 2010s, somewhere around 2010, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I was invited to TriStar MMA in Montreal. They're very gracious with me. Robbie Stein, Faraz Zahabi, they embraced me, and I got to spend like 2 or 3 days there. Oh, and Eric O'Keefe set it all up. Coach Eric, and I got to just be there, hang out, go for a few meals, and take lots of videos and pictures. And the first time I saw Mandel, it was the craziest photo. I saw him. I'd never seen him before in my life. I turned around, saw him against the cage, and my camera was up to my eye within a split second. And within 3 seconds of me seeing him, I took a photo, and you're going to see that later on the interview with him. It's absolutely amazing photo. You'll see why I'm saying that now. And then I've also got a couple photos with him and Ivan Menjivar, who's the pride of El Salvador, which is another great Canadian fighter, who incidentally was George St. Pierre's first ever MMA fight. So it all comes full circle. Okay, I'm super excited for Mandel. I'm not going to talk about their opponents yet. We talk about those in the interview, so you can read yourself and you can just follow along now. After Mandel is going to be Jasmine Jasdavicius.
I got a big old set of balls. No.
I've got a long history with Jasmine. She is a member of Niagara Top Team. I met her probably 2018, 2019 when Niagara Top Team started. In fact, I mostly got to know Jasmine not as a fighter, but as a person, because, do you know what? I take that back. Let me backtrack just a little bit. I got to know her around that time, but I was actually in attendance at Jasmine's first ever amateur fight. It was at was it not King of the Cage? What was it called? Something. It was in Rochester, New York at the Armories. And I remember I went there. I was a fight fan and wanted, this is before MMA had come back, my website. And I went there to the Armories, and there was this girl fight, and I watched it, and it was incredible. And this girl named Jasmine, she was announced at the time as being from Parabellum MMA under coach Rory and Lyndon. So that's all I knew. So later on, just out in the crowd randomly, I saw Jasmine just like walking out like after the fight, and she had a couple bruises on her face and stuff like she always does. And I said, "Hey, are you the Parabellum girl?" And she said, "Yeah, that's me." And so we briefly chatted. And then later I got to know her quite a bit better as just an individual, as a human, because her boyfriend, Coach Chris Prickett from Niagara Top Team, his daughter Kira and my daughter Olivia were friends at Niagara Top Team, and they trained together. So we would go do stuff. We'd go to like a place called Zoos in Niagara Falls, which is like a zoo. It's got all sorts of wild animals. We went to Canada's Wonderland. So that's how I got to know Jasmine. Super wonderful girl. Incredible story. I've interviewed her before. You can see those on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be getting her in for a full-length podcast at some point, for like a in-depth podcast. Anyway, she's currently the number 6 ranked flyweight in the UFC. It's come a long way, man. I was also at her first ever pro fight, and that was in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I'm going to say Pittsburgh. Oh, I have. Here is the ticket stub. Full Contact Promotions presents Rage in the Cage 3 at the Main Street Armory in Main Street, Rochester, New York. And so I think that was Jasmine's first fight. I saw her fight 2 or 3 times there. So this is from one of her fights in Rochester. And this is WFC 109 from rear section, Saturday, July 13th, 2019. It doesn't say where it is, but I'm pretty sure it was Pittsburgh. Rivers Casino, 777 Casino Drive. And that's my ticket stub from her first ever professional fight, which was also a wicked fight. So I know I'm kind of flexing here, but I've been to a lot of fights. I've supported a lot of amateur fighters and stuff throughout the years. So it's really cool that I can get to be here where I am right now. Jasmine, if she does well in this fight, look for her to be a top contender, maybe one more fight away from a title shot. We'll see. Knock on wood. Good luck for her. I'm not going to talk about the non-Canadian fights because this is just a Canadian MMA fight channel. So after that, on the preliminary card, we have one of my favorite guys, Jourdain Leblanc. You'll see my interview with him shortly. This is Jourdain's first ever fight in the UFC, and very much like Jamie Siraj, who you'll see later, and Melissa Croden, who you'll see later, he went straight into the UFC. No Contender Series, no Ultimate Fighter TV series or anything like that. He just put in his dues in Samurai MMA, and he's kicked some ass. And I think I have to bleep that out for one of my podcast places. But anyway, otherwise they're going to read it as explicit. Anyway, Julian's made it to the UFC. You can just tell when I speak with him, you'll see it later, that he is just so overjoyed, and I am as well. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. He's a middleweight. He trains out of Patenaude MMA in Gatineau, and he goes down often to Killcliff MMA in Florida, where he trains with Aaron Jeffrey and a couple other great fighters. Marc-Andre Barrio, he sees him sometimes. So Julian, let's go, man. This is awesome. After Julian, great news, Tanner Boser, heavyweight Tanner Boser. Still heavyweight this time. He was in the UFC before. He had a so-so record. He had some really nice wins, but he had some losses, and he was cut from the UFC. He's been brought back in. Super stoked for Tanner. Very entertaining fighter. It's funny when you think of heavyweights. You tend to think of these big lumbering guys, and some of them are, but Tanner is very agile, very, very mobile, and very exciting to watch. Excellent striker. Great guy to talk to as well. I was going to have an interview with Tanner. I checked in with him. He said he was open to it, but to go through his management, which is Dominance MMA, and I contacted them. crickets, never heard anything back. So hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him in person in Winnipeg when I get there on Thursday, but I would have loved to have had an interview. So Dominance, if you're watching this, let's go. All right, then Melissa Croden. I mentioned her a moment ago. She went straight into the UFC after a lot of success, and this is actually her third UFC fight, so this is exciting. You'll see my chat with her, so I won't talk too much about that, but yeah, super cool. I love the chances these Canadian athletes are getting. Then Jamie Lynn Horth is fighting JJ Aldrich. Jamie's been doing really well in the UFC. Super excited for her, and yeah, we'll see how this goes. Finally, the last Canadian on the card is Jamie Siraj. Now, you probably saw my post from only a couple days ago. Jamie just brought into the UFC. He, in my chat with him, you'll hear later on that it was like a week ago or something. And, you know, he's had a lot of success in the regional circuits. He's fought in Tough Enough in Las Vegas. He's been around Sean Shelby, the UFC matchmaker. They knew who he is, and they knew he was skilled enough to be in the UFC. But about a week or so ago, he's just feeling very depressed, and maybe not depressed, not the right word. He'll explain it better. But then he talked to his manager, Jason House, and said, Jason, you know, like, can we get a push on here? Like, I need to do a contender series. Contender series typically happens in August, in the fall timeframe. So he said, yeah, let's get something happening. And so Jason House messaged him like 6 hours later, I think it was, and said, Jamie, would you be able to make 135? Now, Jamie's fought at 145 and 155, I believe. So Jamie didn't even hesitate. He said, yeah, let's go. I'll fight at 135. And so now, guess what? He's fighting at 135. Somebody dropped out. Jamie was ready. So that's the lesson to you. If you're ever a fighter hoping for a last-minute fight in the UFC or anywhere really, you need to be prepared. There's no real off season. You can't do like the Paddy Pimblett bulk and, you know, gain 50 pounds and then try to cut that immediately. You might be able to, some guys can, but most of you are going to have to like be ready for that go position. So when it's time, it's time. Anyway, that's it. This is exciting. More news, I guess. Finally, as of late last night, I have put the MMA show onto all podcast platforms. Just to refresh your memory, if you knew already or if you didn't know, I started the MMA show a couple of years ago. I've done interviews for MMA for years, for decades, actually. I started off with SureDog.com in 2006, went to a whole bunch of UFCs, went to all sorts of Canadian events. I wrote for ESPN. I was the first journalist to report that Canadian legend Georges St. Pierre intended to win 3 championships in 3 different weight classes. That was published on ESPN. And ultimately, he won 2 weight divisions, which is still super incredible. And so I've been around for a while. So it's been the time now where I just sort of figured it's time to just do something with this. You know, I took it seriously, but not that seriously, right? So I'm preparing for another podcast. This is the podcast studio for Andy Cotterill Presents, and you've probably seen some of my posts about that. But as I was getting ready and learning how to publish podcasts, these are going to be long form podcasts, like 2 or 3 hours, that kind of thing, more in depth with fighters and fight people, and later on people outside the fight sphere. I realized this is really easy. Like, this is setting up this podcast is not that hard. Why don't I do it with MMA? So for like a month now, I've been doing an MMA show every week, and I just finally just put like 10 or 11 of them on all podcast platforms yesterday. So they're on something called Podbean, and Podbean is a podcast host. So Podbean sends it out to Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever the Apple one's called. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube Podcasts, it's on a whole bunch of YouTube platforms. Podcast platforms. So if you could do me a favor, a couple things. If you enjoy my content, I put a lot of work, a lot of effort into this, and I want to start seeing a little bit of money coming back, like even hosting my covering my internet costs. You know, you don't make money being an MMA journalist, that's for sure. The only money that I see is the money that I spend to go travel, attend events, and gas, and all that kind of stuff. So, as you know, I'm going to be going to 6 events in the next few weeks, including 4 in 7 days. On April 18th, I'll be in Winnipeg for the UFC. On April 25th, I'll be in Pictou, Nova Scotia for FLA 24. May 2nd, I will be in Calgary for Absolute MMA. May 7th, I'll be in Vancouver for BFL 87. The next night, on May 8th, I'll be back in Toronto for Unified MMA 69. And finally, on May 9th, I'll be at Prospect FC 23 in Niagara Lake, Ontario. So I'm going to be hustling, guys. So do me a favor. All the like, comment, subscribe. Please follow my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll put the links everywhere down here so you can see. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can start monetizing it. I almost feel like I'm begging, but I'm not. Like, I don't think I'm asking too much. I know I get thousands of views, but not a lot of subscribers. I'm not sure why. I'm currently at about the 200 subscriber mark on YouTube. Instagram is by far my most popular platform. I get, upwards of 1 million hits or likes or imprints or whatever a month, because I attend to a lot of events and put a lot of cool stuff. So subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on whatever podcast platform you're on. I think I'm subscribed to myself on Spotify, and I think I'm the only subscriber right now because it's just brand new. So if you can do me a favor and do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And that being said, I'm starting to get a hoarse voice, so why don't we just move on to the interviews? Oh, wait, Jesus, I'm the worst. After this, after the UFC content, I've got one more interview. Really lucky to speak with Canadian MMA legend, the Polish Hammer, Chris Horodecki, as he is talking about his show, Rising Stars MMA, happening this Saturday, also the same night as the UFC in London, Ontario. Chris said, don't worry, fight fans. They're putting the show on earlier on the day. I think doors are open at 4 and the fight start at 5, something like that. It's going to be kickboxing and MMA in a cage, and he put it on early so that you can watch those fights. If there's a stream, I'll give you the details, and then you can still watch the UFC, have a good UFC night with your pals, and enjoy all that. So it was really cool talking to Chris. As a veteran, and although I did a big snafu where I called his Team Tompkins and Adrenaline MMA partners, I called them by the wrong names. I think I called Mark Hominick Mark Tompkins, and Sam Stout I called Sean Stout. I don't know. It's one of those things. Just please, you don't have to forgive me. I don't deserve to be forgiven for that. Anyway, that's it. For real, I'm going to stop talking now, so enjoy the show. Hey there, fight friends. We have a very special treat today. We are joined by Canadian UFC fighter Charles Jourdain, who is fighting in his first co-main event for the UFC organization at UFC Fight Night in Winnipeg on April 18th. Charles Jourdain, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Andy.
You've come a long way in lots of regards, not just your fighting ability. Of course, you've been an excellent fighter for years and you're still improving, but I find that even your speaking ability and you're comfortable in English has come a long way as well. And you just seem very relaxed when you're talking now.
I'm trying to listen as much as Eminem that I can, even though the lyrics are quite disturbing. Oh my God. No, for real. I've been practicing on my ability to speak because especially in English, it's the language of commerce. So the more you can talk, the more you can present yourself properly, the more you can solidify relationship with the sponsors. So yeah, I put a lot of time into developing my tongue, and not only for my wife, but for everybody around the world.
It's good to know. Thank you for sharing. So you said something to me just before we started recording. You said that this is a media day for you. You're doing interviews.
Yes.
And you said you're speaking to a lot of people and the quality of the interview questions has improved a lot.
Yes.
Would you mind just re-explaining to the people listening what the things you said to me?
I think a lot of times when it comes to questioning, people are very robotic. But then you see a younger generation, those 19-year-olds are opening podcasts and they're trying to be big on social media. And I was actually quite surprised. I think they had better questions than, let's say, TVA or Sportsnet, like those big, because then they stick to, are you ready? Is it a great fight? Are you happy your co-main event? It's like very freaking obvious that I am. But these guys are very into trying to pick our brain when it comes to discipline, what you eat, how's your life, everything. So it's getting a little bit more personal, but I think I like it because those interviews can really pick the brain of the individual you're interviewing. So I really enjoyed my media day today, and it's not over because right now I'm with the main man, Andy. So
thank you. Yeah, I think I do agree with you. And I think that's got a lot to do with the advent of long form podcasts. Mm-hmm. It used to be years ago when you had traditional media, they would have you for 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and they would just have to ask you this question after question, and they need a quick, short answer from you. Mm-hmm. With podcasts, you can talk for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and
long format, absolutely.
So when now the interviewers, especially like you said, the young kids coming up, they see all that and they want to know the more detailed answers. They want to know in-depth stuff about your life, which I think is kind of cool as long as you are.
I would also attribute that to the younger generation being into that self improvement phase of their life. But man, they took it to another level, meaning that these kids are reading more, they're more how can we say, they're not sticking to only fight, getting ready to fight or gym. It's not just about looks.
Mm.
These guys, these young men are quite impressive. When I was 20 years old, I was not reading as much book as I am today, and I really appreciate that from the younger generation. But yeah, that's a great point. When it comes to podcasts, you need to uh, have long thoughtful, you can have, sorry, long thoughtful response when it comes to question. And I remember George had ice on his face, and he's like, and who's next? And he's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, George was busted up after the Nick Diaz fight, and they were already talking about Johnny Hendricks. And I remember it flashed in my brain where George was like, dude, are you kidding me right now? It's like short form, short answer. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna give a fight right now. I'm gonna go home and eat and sleep.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's changing for the good.
It's cool though. You just said something interesting. I'm not sure if you caught it yourself. You mentioned about how the young kids are coming up and they've got a lot of self development. Then you said that you read a lot more books now than you did when you were 20 years old. So
Yes.
you must be having some sort of self development yourself as well. What do you have in your life now that you think is helping you to grow as a person?
Of course, it's my son, and
Hmm.
my son completely changed my approach. Even earlier today, we were talking like guys were doing some digging into my past self, let's say, and they were asking like, do you still smoke? Do you still game? Do you still like that be in that phase of your life? No, I didn't outgrow it, but right now I'm very careful what I do with my time. I think there's a famous influencer, like it or hate him. I think Andrew Tate said something so funny at one point, and he's like speaking about pleasuring yourself alone as a man, and he's like, of all the things you could be doing, you could be learning a new language, you could be working on your career, you could be working on building relationships, you could be on doing many things, but no, you're going to go in your room and pull on your wee wee. And I was like, yeah, that's not a great use of my time. So now
Yeah.
becoming a father, having the home, the kids, everything, of course, I'm very more careful what I do with my time. So, of course, when I have some time, I'll digging a very nice book. I have plenty in the back right here. And right now I'm delving into Adlerian psychology. And Adler was a counterfeit, let's say, to Freud. Freud would be more like, this happened to you, therefore this will
Mm.
happen to you in the future. But Adlerian psychology would be based on your idea of your future self will dictate your present self. So I really like this because, like Jordan Peterson said,
Mm.
Adler was a practical philosopher and psychologist. So when it comes to bettering your life, I think uh, if you read Nietzsche and you start reading Freud, I think you're going to be a little bit more depressed before you get better. When it comes to Adler, I think he's presenting you an idea of the future self. And I've been reading about him for a long time. And actually, the meaning of the tattoo is not just the pirate. The skull, what it means for me is, uh, are you ready? It's a very nice line that I've read in the book is, are you gonna have the courage to die? And what he means by that is dying in that the sense of letting go a part of you. So it's like killing the you have been up until that day in order to build a better you, a stronger you, or something more. So, but for that, you need to let go a part of you that's been you for a very long time. So
Mm.
the definition of that skull is: are you going to be ready to look the to sorry, I'm in my mind I'm proceeding in French because most of the thing I read
Sure.
are in French. But yeah, are you gonna have the courage to die at some point? And dying is accepting that, okay, maybe I need to change some things in my life. And this is what it represents for me. It's the voluntary sacrifice of self in order to get stronger. And the stronger you are is not to fight people, it's to build. Someone who's strong is more in their sense of contribution. So yeah, I'm dwelling into those ideas. So this is why when they say, oh, Charles, you win the bonus, I'm not happy for me, I'm happy for everybody that's going to I'll be able to share with. I can
Hmm.
have the best meal in the world. There's nothing like a proper meal shared with friends or family. So I'm not. I'm in the self development, but not for myself. I'm trying to get as strong as I can in order for my family and my friends and people around me can benefit from that stronger version of myself. So yeah, that would be what I'm dwelling into right now.
That's amazing. I had a basic understanding of Adler and his concepts before, but clearly you're much more deeply into it than I was. But it sort of also ties into this concept that I've followed for a long time, and that's delayed gratification. You can do things right now to make yourself happy and make yourself feel good, or you could take your time, put your nose to the grindstone, do the work, and then later on down the line you can compound your gratitude, compound your happiness, and just make it much more bigger in the future as long as you
It's a
put in the work.
gift from you in the present for your future self, and your future self will be very happy if you kept that discipline. I completely agree with you. And yeah, unfortunately, with phones, with dopamine, everything, of course, not a victim because I know what I do, but this is a very intense tool, and it's made to use. It's made for you to fall into betting and gluttony and all the sins you can think of. It's very easy to fall into it because they've programmed you to have those dopamine spikes, and it's quite dangerous. But yeah, delayed gratification is a gift from you to your future self, and I think it should be taught a little bit more to the youngsters. Although, like I said, the young people I interviewed today were quite smart young men.
That's amazing. Well, I think we should move on now to the actual
Yes.
fight, the reason why we're talking here. So, of course, you are fighting Kyler Phillips at the co-main event at UFC in Winnipeg on April 18th. He's got a lot to lose in this fight. He's coming off a two fight losing streak. You're coming off a 2-fight win streak. He's going to come in there really hungry. What do you think about him as an opponent, and what are you going to have to do to make sure he goes to three losses in a row?
I expect a lot of chaos. I don't think he's going to develop that much physically. And I've been built like in a different frame, meaning I fought 45ers all my life. So the 35 strength is nothing compared to the Duo Choi, the Jean Silva. Those guys were enormous. So I don't think him putting a lot of emphasis on his physicality will make any drastic change. I think Kyler Phillips, when you watch, let's say, 5 fights ago and 2 fights ago, he fights the same way. He's not a guy who's diversifying his toolbox like I am. Like if you look at my fight against Jean or whatever, you can go 2, 3 fights back and you're like, man, Charles is completely different today. So whatever you see, expect something more when it comes to me. And whatever I see with Kyler, I think it's more of the same. So it's it all will play in my ability to force him into his default patterns, the right hand crash, the movement left and right, the matrix. You don't chase the matrix, you need to pressure the matrix. So I think that's going to be quite interesting when it comes to I think it would all play out mostly in the grappling department. So I don't mind grappling with him. I think it's going to be fun. I can finally show some other tools if he doesn't tap to the guillotine with his first entry, or he doesn't hit the knee if he tries to get in, or a teep in the face. So it will be his duty to try to force me to run after him and then try to get into my legs. And it's going to be my duty to make sure I use a ghost pressure. I'm there, but I'm not there for you to take. I'm in your face, but you cannot touch me and you cannot take me down. So I think this is how it's going to play out. Of course, there's some specifics that we'll keep for post fight. But yeah, I think Kyler Phillips is very, very interesting matchup. Of course, coming from 2 losses against 2 good guys, Rob Font and Vinicius. So it's not losing to anybody.
Yep.
But of course, you have that fire up your ass saying, okay, maybe my job is on the line. I've had this fire before and it changed me. So I wouldn't be surprised he would do something great. But what can he do? Change his fighting style completely? I doubt he would do that. You can teach a whole dog new tricks. No, he's been fighting the same way for a long time. So I don't expect a drastic change. Like I wouldn't see him arrive as a lefty. If he does, please do. I fight better lefties than righties. But yeah. So when it comes to drastic change, I don't expect much, but I expect a guy who's going to try hard and then at one point be like, you know what, fuck it, maybe I'm not built for this anymore. Because when you're on the losing streaks, you start doubting yourself, And now when you're getting hit to the body, hit counter punch, block takedowns, or getting attacked with guillotines, kicks, legs, everything, you're starting to doubt yourself. It happened to me. I overcome it, but a lot of guys have fallen prey to the mental weight of accepting that maybe you're not on that level anymore.
You mentioned diversification, his lack of diversification, and that's a good word to describe the way I think of you. When I was first introduced to you a handful of years ago, when I first really became aware of you, my personal impression of you is that you were primarily a striker. You know, great stand-up, good kickboxing, good hands, really, really powerful. But then over the past few years, you've also had some really impressive submissions. And in fact, your past 2 victories in the UFC have both been by submission.
Yes.
Was that always a part of your game and I just didn't see it? Was I not looking hard enough, or was that something that's developed over time?
Yeah, no, I've built up a counter game to those grapplers because I was giving too much of a size advantage. Guys tried to put me against the wall and try to wrestle me or tie up to me. So I had to build a proper counter to that, and proper counter to that is jiu-jitsu. And my jiu-jitsu is good. I don't want to flatter myself, but I see guys, I see position, and I see not only guillotine. I'm a very good black belt, and I see some great things that I can be doing, but hey, if you tap to the guillotine first, because after the guillotines, there's such a sequence that I know. And guys at the gym who know my guillotine, they know what I attack after that, if let's say they have the proper ability to get out of the guillotine. So there's this whole world that, but when you're doing an exam, like a fight, you're not trying new stuff. You're trying what works.
Yeah.
And if guillotine works, good. But let's say I have a couple bullets in the arsenal ready for those guys who are trying to wrestle me.
Well, I will be there in Winnipeg to watch you in person, so I hope I get to see 1 or 2 of those bullets. That's pretty exciting.
Oh, that's amazing.
Huh? So your co-main event, Mike Malot's the main event, Canadian, your Canadian co-main event. This is your first co-main event in the UFC. It's got to be exciting, and I'm sure you're flattered, but does it make any difference for you in your mental preparation and any pressure that might be put on you?
I'm just very happy about it. I felt butterflies. I didn't feel stress. I felt like, wow, it's almost 7 years. It's going to be 7 years in May. 7 years in the UFC, ups and downs, high and lows, 55, 45, 35. Like I had so many ups and downs, and now I have my kid, I have my home, I have my sister. You know, I have so many things in my life where I'm just completely grateful. I'm in the right path. 2-0 as a bantamweight, feeling fantastic. It's just I think when they announced co-main event, I'm like, it's just the way it should be because of the work.
You and your family and your friends must be very proud, and I'm glad for that.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
No, I just said you must be very proud, and I'm happy that you're proud for this because you put in a lot of work and you deserve it.
Oh, absolutely. Because let's say after my Jean Silva fight, I had this thing that maybe Kyler Phillips is going through. Am I good enough? What am I going to do? Like I thought about quitting, and then I came back home, and then Clarence looks at me and she's like, "I'm pregnant." Like, what are you talking about? I mean, you're pregnant. It's like, yeah, we're having a baby. We're in this apartment. I'm like, okay, now we need a house. Now this kid needs a father who's not a quitter. This kid's gonna have a father who gave everything to be stronger. So everything changed. And I think life gets better when you're fighting for something more than yourself. Now I can have 4 hours of sleep. We go. Of course, I don't have 4 hours of sleep most of the time because my wife is fantastic. She allows me to sleep for the camp, so she's wonderful for that. But like sometimes you barely sleep and you go to the gym. Like when we went to Toronto for the fight for my kid, the Orsino kid, came back, took 8 hours to come back, and I was 3 hours sleep. Now back to Montreal, sparring the guys. It was just rah, rah, rah. We go all in. And yeah, when you're fighting for something bigger than yourself, life has become even more meaningful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's important to put others in front of yourself. I think it's important to have the mentality of service to others. I've always followed that in my lifetime. And I just think it makes you a better person. I think it makes you
100%.
You said it yourself. It just makes you think outside yourself because, looking after yourself, it's necessary, but it's also selfish. So if you can look and help other people, support other people, and take care of yourself, that's just a net good.
Totally agree. That's a great mindset, Andy. You're so good, man. We think alike, man. I hope when I get to your age, I'll be as handsome and as knowledgeable. Let's
Oh
go
my
with
God. I was
that.
almost going to give you shit for calling me old, but then you called me handsome, so thank you. Let's take a sidestep for a second and talk about your brother Louis. He
Yes.
won his Dana White's Contender Series fight. Really impressive, looked fantastic. When are we going to see him join you in the UFC ranks?
So right now, Louis went to the UFCPI, broke the record for the VO2 max of the UFC completely. So he broke some record. Louis is in fantastic shape, but Louis is a very meticulous man. So this is why uh, his road has been different from mine. I'm like, yeah, broken toe, let's go. Broken hand, let's go. And Louis is like, no, if we do things, we do it properly. He's more like my father than me. I'm
Mm,
more like the dummy of the family. So Louis is very meticulous in his approach, and he wants to make sure his body is very strong for 35 because he used to fight at 125,
mhm,
and now he wants to be a proper 35er. And in order to do that, he needs some more time. So we're probably gonna see Louis around June, but I cannot speak
mm.
for him.
Yeah,
They're in the work for something, but right now, build the body, build the mind, and then build a bear. Doesn't mean anything.
I know. I'm not going to make a joke about stuffing him, so that's good. All right, Charles, it's always such a joy to talk with you. You're such an interesting guy. I enjoy speaking with you every single time we meet. And at some point, when I have my long form podcast up and running, I've got a studio being built in Niagara. I would love to have you down, just sit and chat with you for like 3 hours about a bunch of stuff. But
Let's do it.
right now, I'll just say thank you for your time, and I'm going to open the floor to you if you have any final words, anything you'd like to say. And is there anything you think I should have asked you about that I didn't?
No, I think it was very good questions, very good talk. I like when we deviate towards the mindset of the
Mm.
fighter. I think this is what long form is for. And you picked my brain and you did it tremendously. I'm very happy and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Charles.
It
There you go,
was
fight friends. Charles Jourdain fighting in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night in Winnipeg on April 18th. Mandel Nallo, I can't tell you how happy I am to speak with you. You, for years, have been the fighter. Whenever somebody has asked me who's the best unknown fighter in Canada, I always said Mandel Nallo.
I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, it feels like.
I first encountered you in, I think it was 2011. I was at TriStar for 2 or 3 days. I was doing some pictures. I was invited in to spend some time there and hang out with everybody. And I remember I'm going to screen share a picture with you. The first time I ever saw you, I took a picture of you within like 3 seconds of seeing you. And this is what it was. Can you see that?
Yes, yeah.
I was thought it was so crazy, man. I don't remember who. Maybe it was Eric O'Keefe. I said, "Who the heck is that guy?" And he said, "Oh, that's Mandel." And at the time, he told me that you. I don't know if this is true or not. He told me, I think, if my memory's right, it's been a while, that you used to travel like 5 or 6 hours from Ottawa just to train there. So you must have lived in Ottawa at the time, if that's true.
Yeah, no, I would wake up. So Nabil Khatib, a local
Yep.
legend
Yep.
in Ottawa, would be
Yep.
driving up for sparring when he was still fighting professionally. So I'd wake up, take the bus to Nabil, and then we would drive, and then we would drive back, and then I would take the bus back home. So it was like, yeah, overall maybe I don't even know, an 8 hour, 9 hour day just to spar. But that's
Yeah.
what I used to do on Saturdays. Yeah.
It was worth it, though, I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't even notice that it was a big deal. I just thought that this is like what I have to do.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to show you two more pictures that I have. I went through my archives, and this one I thought was kind of cool. You and, of course, Ivan Menjivar, the pride of El Salvador.
Yes, there's
Canadian
another one
MMA
I
legend.
think where he's holding onto my leg and he's so tenacious on that. Like
Watch
it's an awesome
that one.
picture. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
He's got
Ivan
that
is
smile on his face.
a true gem.
Yeah, I last saw Ivan at the UFC in Montreal last year. I was sitting in the seats, and I felt these people come down beside me and they stopped to get into the aisle where I was sitting. So I stood up and I looked. Right beside me is Ivan Menjivar. So we chatted for a while. It was great to see him. Took some pictures, and it's kind of cool. It's
Yeah.
you must feel really. I mean, people watching you in this next UFC, of course, some of them saw you on Contender Series, but watching from Winnipeg, it'll be the first time a lot of them have ever been exposed to you. But you've been around for a long time, man. You've put in the grind. You've put in your time, haven't you?
Yeah, it feels that way at least. Like I've been doing this job for a long time. I've been at TriStar for a long time, and I think everybody has known that I'm pretty good for a long time. So
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's pretty cool to finally make it happen.
You've got a really impressive record at 14-3. You've had a lot of success. You're in Bellator for a long time. And when that organization kind of went away, what was your mindset like? Did you still really, were you focused on still trying to make it to the UFC, or was that just something that possibly you thought wasn't going to happen?
To me, I never like. I guess to me, when Bellator didn't work out, my mindset shifted to just like it's fighting people for money. That's the number one job. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter where you do it, really. And that's always been my mindset. But there's always a little something that tells you, like, if you're a professional MMA fighter, you do want to at least make it into the UFC
Mm-hmm.
for a stint. You know, it's validating. As silly as that is, as a pro
It's not silly
fighter,
at all.
it doesn't feel like you've really done the job in the eyes of the general public until you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it in the UFC. Like when I was in Bellator, the amount of people that would be like, "You ever think about signing to the UFC? You're so good. Why don't you just sign to the UFC?" You know. So it's pretty nice to have done it. And like when Bellator didn't work out, my mindset did shift pretty much to just like, yeah, that's kind of where I need to go, because you're not sure about any other promotion as much as the other promotions are trying, and that's good for the sport to have other places. You just don't know what's going to happen in the next year, and that showed, when the PFL consumed Bellator. Like, a lot of the Bellator guys were just kind of floating around for 2-3 years because they couldn't get matchups. Maybe their contracts were too expensive. It was a whole mess, and all that time the UFC is just constantly putting on good shows. So yeah, when it didn't happen in Bellator, immediately I was just like, I need to get fights so that I can move on to the next big show.
Mm-hmm. Take us through the process about how you got selected for Contender Series.
Mm, Honestly, I don't know what they. All you know as a fighter is that you're on their radar to a degree, in your region, and that you they want exciting fighters for Contender specifically. Like, in general, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but the chances of you getting a shot on Contender, if your record doesn't show that you have the ability to finish, is slimmer. So when the UFC was in Montreal, uh, I forget what show that was, but Benoit Saint Denis was on the show, and
Yep.
his opponent fell through. And then
Kyle
I got
Prepelic jumped in.
yes, so I got a call. Kyle was supposed to be fighting Mick Dufort, and on a samurai show, and I was supposed to
Yeah.
be fighting somebody else on the same show. I think that's how it worked out. But my opponent kind of had fallen through, so I was waiting to hear if I was going to get a replacement on Samurai, and then we heard, oh, BSD is out, or his opponent's out. So, one of you three is probably the guy. So,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, great, this is perfect. And then Kyle got hired, and me and Mick are teammates and friends, so that didn't work out that we fought. So I just didn't end up fighting. And I was like, oh, that's disappointing, full camp, cutting weight and all that, but it is what it is. And then within probably 2 weeks, I was, I think just having them look at me closely in the process of figuring out whether I was going to be hired for that show, I think kind of clued them in that, yeah, this guy's a worthwhile trial on the Contender. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much how it happened.
And you prove them right, because you win the Contender Series. And just to add on to something you said earlier on about the UFC wanting exciting fights, 100% right. In fact, you can have, and people who don't watch Contender Series often might not realize that there are fighters that go in there, win their fights, and they don't get selected for the UFC just because Dana White or whomever else looks at them and says, you just didn't do anything for me. You didn't show me anything special. You didn't have that killer instinct. And when you went in there, man, you sure made the most out of that opportunity. You looked really impressive in that win. Right after that happened, and they announced that you, an old guy, I think Dana White made a comment, something like that you're a little bit older than what he wanted, but you just looked so good, he had to take you. What were you feeling right at that moment?
Mm, it's a funny thing, the Contender. It's a unique experience because most nights you are going out there to win a fight. But contender, you're going out there to win a contract. So like the chances of you having a good fight and a bad night are pretty high, you know. So I won the fight, I was happy, and then I realized as I'm sitting in the back, like, oh, like something else has to go right for me to actually have a successful outing here. Um, but honestly, like reflecting on it in my head, sitting on those director chairs waiting to be called, I was like, this can't. If they're not hiring me for this, then I don't know what else to do. So I was pretty confident that I was gonna get it, and when I did, it was like, oh, nice. Still, I was like riding a pretty big high just from winning a fight, but
Mhm.
it was like, oh, like we can be proud, we can be happy now. It was a successful business trip kind of thing. Because yeah, you do see guys go out there and fight well and not get hired, and then you see guys go out there and score, you know, quote unquote boring 10-9, 30-27 victories, and like I think potentially tank their ability to ever get signed to the UFC.
Mhm.
Because that's not what the show is for. It is, you don't go out there and secure a win. If they see you do that, you're potentially blacklisted, and you need to do something exceptional on the regional scene for them to look at you again.
Yeah, we do see redemption sometimes where a fighter doesn't do well in contender series and gets brought back, or maybe they get a full time shot, but it's really rare. So
Super
it's
rare, yeah.
the much smarter game to do what you did and just went. I don't know what your mindset was if you knew going in that you're going to go all for broke, but just the skill, the disparity in the skill level between you and your opponent, it seemed to me like, say, a casual fan watching would look at that and think that, oh, that you, Mantel, you know what you're doing, and the other guy, even though he knows what he's doing too, you made it look like you didn't. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's nice when it comes together in the cage, like I think like luckily for me, going into that fight, I knew what I had to do. Like I knew I had to do something impressive, but none of my fights really go the way that the UFC doesn't want them to go. So at least I didn't have to augment my game in any way to perform well. And outside of that, yeah, you just take what the guy gives you. Really, I didn't go in there thinking like, oh, I'm gonna throw it all out there in the first round. I was just like, if something good lands, that's good. And honestly, after landing two front kicks to the face that didn't phase the guy, I was like, oh, I guess this is going 15.
There's going to be a lot of people who are watching UFC Winnipeg that are going to see you fight for the first time. Just to give them a bit of a heads up, talk about your fighting style. How would you describe yourself as a fighter?
Mm, I think I'm a technique technique guy, but probably one of the more unique strikers in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of my strikes are not the most orthodox looking, but they're all based in pretty clean technique. And yeah, look, it's never boring. I would have to say.
Agreed. It's just when I watch you fight, initially it's the clear, obvious skill set that you have. You said technique, and you can see that in every punch and every kick. You're also really tall and slender for the weight class, as far as I know. It seems like you're taller than most of your opponents, which is probably a benefit as long as you know how to utilize your range and distance control, which you do. Yeah, I just think it's really cool. I know you've spent some time on the ground before, but I don't think you're particularly known for being a ground fighter. But I know that you are skilled in that regard as well, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I mean every TriStar guy really. We try to be as well rounded and well prepared as possible. So, um, yeah, like I'm a Faraz Zahabi black belt. I'm pretty proud of my ground game. So yeah, like we're all pretty well rounded guys.
Mm-hmm. Who is going to be coming with you to Winnipeg?
My friend Steve Sims, former
Mhm.
pro fighter out of Canada. Um, Faraz, obviously, and then Eamon's going to be there in the corner as well.
That's amazing. Everyone at TriStar must be really thrilled for Eamon and his success, and of course his UFC White House appearance against Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, I know it's pretty amazing to see. I mean, we grew up here together, and Eamon's always wanted to be kind of the next torchbearer for Canadian MMA and a TriStar. He wants to kind of be the general, and he really is filling those boots nicely since George. Like he's an inspiration to us all. He's a special guy.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while now since you had your Contender Series victory, and you've had some time to keep training and getting prepared and reflect on everything. How has your life changed since you got that nod to join the UFC but and yet not having your first fight?
Like my life doesn't change at all because of the way I prepared for all my fights. Like you just you train as hard as you can, as often as you can. So it's not like I was waiting to be in the UFC to max out my potential as a fighter. Like it's always very simple. I hang out with my family, and when I'm not doing that, I I train full time. So yeah, like I think a good performance, maybe it changes some guys' careers more than mine. But for me, like I've had great performances, big, the big knockout I scored in Bellator. It didn't change my life as much as you'd expect, even though it's got millions of views and all this stuff. It was like, I'm still a guy that just takes his kids to school in the morning and that's it.
How many kids do you have?
I got two,
That's awesome. How old are they?
a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay, so they're at the age where they know what daddy does, but I don't think they fully comprehend all of it and like the immensity of what happens when you go into the cage against somebody else. Like at their age, they don't understand probably violence at that level. I'm willing to bet. Is that a challenge? That conversation to have with them?
Uh, for me, no, I try to shelter them as much as possible. Like they understand a little bit. They both train jujitsu, but they're they have never seen me fight or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
They've never seen an MMA fight. Like we watched kung fu movies together, but
Yeah,
never anything real. I don't know. I can't imagine showing my boys that. It's too
yeah.
much. I think it's too much. I'll never
Someday.
forget. Uh, you know, all credit to Max Holloway. I think he's a great fighter and a great father. But his son in Toronto, watching him lose to Dustin Poirier and bawling his
Mm-hmm.
eyes out, I'll never forget. Like I can't imagine the mark that leaves on a kid's memory. I would never do that to my kids.
Yeah, something similar when Mark Coleman fought Fedor Emelianenko, and Fedor just beat the crap out of him. And Mark Coleman's face was all bruised, and his eyes were this big. And he brought his two little blonde daughters in there, little girls, and they were just bawling their eyes out.
Yeah,
And Fedor, of course, trying to be like pleasant and not introducing the kids to the guy who just beat up Daddy, and they were crying
he's a
so bad.
monster. He's like,
I felt awful.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I try to keep them as as far away from the full understanding of it as
Mhm.
possible.
Let's wrap up the interview, but while we're doing this, I'd like to talk about Jay Herbert, your opponent. When you were
hmm
first offered him, he's fought in the UFC before. He's a known fighter. How much did you know about him, and like was it even a no brainer accepting this fight and knowing that you'd take it to him?
Yeah, no, this is like ideal matchup. Of when you're entering the UFC, I think that unless you're not too confident in your skills and you're really trying to pick and choose a perfect stylistic matchup for yourself or something, you want a guy with some notoriety and a reputation so that people understand where to place you after a performance against that guy. Like you don't want another 0-0 guy because nobody knows whether
Yeah.
that guy's good or not. So you just kind of end up in a mix of like, oh, you fight another guy who's 0-1 or 1-0 or whatever. Whereas like doing well against Jai, everybody who's done that has proven that they're top 20, top 15. Like Fair Siam is now breaking into the top 15. Obviously Ilia Topuria, is current champion, and had a tough fight against Jai. So as far as the matchup goes, we were more than happy with it. And then Jai as an opponent, I think he's a cool fighter. I think he's way better than his record in the UFC shows.
Mhm.
And you definitely have to be on top of your stuff to beat him.
I'm going to post a scenario to you, and I want to get your thoughts on it. It's Sunday, the 19th of April, 2026. You're just waking up at 10 a.m., or maybe you've been up all night. I don't know. You are still uh, overwhelmed by the enormity of your victory last night and your UFC debut, where you had your hand raised. When you reflect back on that night, after up to 15 minutes with Jai, what did that perfect fight look like to you?
We're always at TriStar, we always just want to show what we've been training and our true ability in the cage. So like I think pitching a shutout is obviously what you want. You want to have no damage and to have scored as many, cool strikes as possible. That's all we want to do. We just want to go out there and show our skills, and nobody game plans for a drag out, back and forth fight. Like you game plan to pitch a shutout, and then whatever happens happens, and you prepare for that outcome as well. But yeah, just being uninjured, and everybody understanding on that, post fight, that I'm the man, and like
Mhm.
all that hard work is validated, and my reputation is proven true yet again.
Mhm. Great answer. Love that. So my last question for you now, Mandel, is there anything that you think we should have talked about that I didn't ask you?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I mean, I've been asked about Eamon fighting Sean. That's like an interesting,
Yeah.
interesting question, but I've been asked it enough. I think we covered all our bases here.
Wonderful. Well, then I'll give you a chance now to open the floor if you have anything you'd like to say or anyone you'd like to thank.
Yeah, obviously, I got to thank everybody at TriStar, and then my immediate family. I love them very much, and I've been away from them for too long during this camp. But outside of that, go to ratgarbage.ca. I will probably put some clothes out soon
Yeah.
if you want to buy my stuff, and come to TriStar Toronto. We're teaching every 7 p.m. Me, Steve Sims, or Barry Sims, two amazing black belts.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I got nothing.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was a question I had intended to ask and I completely forgot. Rat garbage. What the hell is that?
It's I guess it's my nickname. Yeah.
I know it's kind of, you have to admit though, it's kind of unusual, but it's kind of, I like it. I love it. It just seems appropriate.
Yeah, no, it's working for me, I guess. So I have no control over what people call me, so it is what it is.
All right, Mandel, it was a pleasure getting to speak to you in depth. We've had a very brief chat all those years ago for like 20 seconds, but this is really nice to spend time getting to know you a little bit. Congratulations on all your success. Best of luck at UFC Winnipeg. I'll be there. I'll be watching you live. I can hardly wait. I'm excited for your opportunity, and I'm excited to watch you showcase your skills to the rest of the world. So thanks for that.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Melissa Croden, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us a week away from your UFC Winnipeg fight, your third UFC fight. How are you feeling today?
Good. I feel good. I feel prepared, and yeah, ready to get into fight week right away here.
What is it about fight week you like, or do you like it?
It's a sensation of relief where there's only one left thing to do, and that is to get to the fight. So it's a it's usually fun because like the weight's off, like you've done all the work, hopefully. Usually I've felt like I've accomplished all the things that I need to do. I've done all the things that I possibly can to feel prepared, and it's just a fun cruise, it feels like.
As I mentioned, you've had a couple fights under your UFC belt now. When you were first announced as being signed to the UFC, I was caught by surprise. Like I think a lot of people might have been, maybe not the people that you know, but I feel like I've got my fingers on the pulse of the MMA scene in Canada. So usually I hear rumblings or rumors if somebody's close, and so when your name was shown out there, I was caught by surprise. Take us through the process of how you went from being a regional, local Canadian fighter. You did fight for LFA later on, but how did you all of a sudden just get signed straight to the UFC? No Contender Series, no Ultimate Fighter, nothing.
Well, I'm sure, as you know, from talking to numerous fighters in and out of the UFC, these things don't happen overnight, and they don't happen at random. I put myself in a position where I had the right management, I had the right team. I had been up until that phone call, I had been staying ready. I was like prepared for a short notice fight for well over a year. So I think that had a lot to do with it, and the fact that it was a Canadian card was a huge help as well. I didn't expect to get signed outright, but I also am not entirely surprised because I did have a chance to actually physically shake hands with Mick Maynard when I was in Miami for a UFC fight. So I think having the opportunity to have met him in person was a huge help. And then having my manager, Brian Butler, kind of vouch for me so strongly were two main components that just put me in the right position. And then all I had to do was continue to train, continue to get better.
Yeah, and it seems like whenever I see social media posts by you, it seems like you're always doing some sort of training. I know you spend a lot of time with Haley Cowan, who had her fight this past weekend. Right now, you're in Vegas. You did this whole training camp at the Performance Institute. When you're training, getting ready for a fight, how do you decide where you're going to go? Are you going to stay in BC? Are you going to go to Texas? Are you going to go to or Las Vegas? How does that get sorted out?
I usually go where the training partners are. I chose Vegas because Haley was doing her camp out here. We're really close friends. She's been my main training partner for a while now, and we've traveled like to Colorado. I've traveled to Texas to train with her, and we originally met out here in Vegas like 6 years ago. So I go where the training partners are. I've been training at Extreme Couture, and I've been working with a really, really strong group of girls there. Been training with Jocelyn Edwards quite a bit because she's fighting the weekend after me, fighting Norma Dumont. So her and I have been sparring quite a bit, and yeah, that usually guides me to where I need to go because at this point, like that's where you're going to figure out where your skills are strong and where they're weak, and you know where to put your focus on as far as your skill work and whatnot in the gym.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I've always been really interested in mental mindset preparation and visualization, things like that. Could you just take a look back in your past? At what point in your career did you think to yourself that yes, you actually think you have you might have what it takes to enter the UFC and succeed, and how you took that initial kernel of a thought and saw it all the way through to where you've actually achieved that success?
I think it is kind of like a perfect storm in a way. I do have a very distinct memory moment that happened when I was an amateur. I was training at Jackson Wink in Albuquerque, and I was doing a camp there. And I remember Mike Winklejohn was teaching a practice, and in the middle of the practice, he was like kind of giving a coach's speech, like, just so you guys know, like, I think someone was late or something. So when that happens on the mats, it tends to annoy certain coaches. So they'll be like, hey, look, guys, you need to smarten up. But basically, he went on a pretty good rant, a really honest rant about how, look, most of you guys are not going to make it to the UFC. You're like, you guys can try and be the best on in the gym, on the mats, and in like on sparring days, but I'm telling you now that the majority of you are not going to make it. It's like 1 in a million that are going to make it to the big show. And I remember sitting there listening to him, and I was like, I'm going to do this. It was a very like distinct moment where I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the one that does this and see it through. So I think a combination of moments like that in my life, and just I'm a really, really stubborn person, and I have a singular mind. Like yeah, like I've always kind of been that way. If I have a goal in mind, I'm doing everything I possibly can to achieve that goal, whether it be like with my career at work and like with MMA and whatnot. So yeah, I've just stubborn nature, just hearing the right things.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I love that. So let's extend that mindset outwards and forwards. I don't want to necessarily talk about looking too far past this next fight, but when you envision the rest of your career, of course, there's, you're going to win in Winnipeg next week. When you look at the rest of your career, what does that timeline look for you? Like, what do you see? What do you envision happening to Melissa Croden in the UFC?
um, it's really hard to make those kinds of predictions. This sport is unforgiving. Like, you could be doing really well for a couple years, and then you meet your match, you take a hard loss. Like, it's just, there's so many variables that are in play in this game that it's hard to predict that. But I'm going in with the mindset that I want to do something at the highest level that I possibly can, and I think I am doing that right now. So I'm going to continue to do that and see how far I can push this. I'm on the back end of my career now. I'm turning 35 next week, and I would like to have a family of my own one day. And this sport is really hard on your body, and it takes. I don't think people understand how hard this sport is. Even if you think you do, I don't think you truly do unless you've experienced it. It takes everything from you. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I think yeah, I'm on the tail end, and I'm just gonna be a martial artist. That's my goal.
You're absolutely right in that people have no idea, because most fans, they will see you on maybe at the weigh-ins, and they'll see you walk out to the cage, you'll see you in the cage and maybe an interview after. And as far as they know, that's your UFC experience, right? It's 2 days where they see you in action. They don't see the 7 days a week that you're at the gym doing something. Even if you're not doing hard training on a day, you're still going to go and you're going to watch other people train. Or they don't see that all the cardio you do. They don't see the meal preparations and the caloric restrictions and all that kind of stuff that you do. And that takes a whole year. It takes a whole life. So to achieve the success that you have and to get to the levels you have, it's something you've got to be either all in, man, or don't even bother showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think that way, but I think as I mature, like as far as being 100% in or not at all, I think as you mature in the sport and you do it long enough, you start to understand that there's so much more in life than just fighting. And I'm sure I'm probably scaring people by saying things like this, but I'm just being completely honest. Like, it's important to go to those birthday parties, go to those weddings, make sure you spend time with your family and stuff, because life is so short. People say the window for fighting is also short, but I think there's a way, especially when you start getting to higher levels, to balance it out a little bit. So yeah, I'm still 100% in this. I'm still committed to doing what I can in this sport, but I also have in mind that I've got a life outside of this. I got a family, and I'd like to have a family of my own one day, and those are also priorities in life. So I think you can approach it with those things in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you a question now. It's either going to be a really easy question for you to answer or a really difficult question for you to answer. I don't know. We'll see. Why do you fight?
I think that my answer changes from time to time. I used to go really deep spiritually when I was younger and explored my character development as a person. But I think it's just a very raw human experience, especially in a world where we're navigating a new landscape of technology and social media and all these things that don't even really feel real anymore. So it makes me feel really connected to the human experience, by doing the most human thing that you can do. Like, you look at even in Genesis in the Bible, like the first people that ever were in existence were all murderers. They're all violent. Like, our society, our life is built off of that. And I'm not saying I condone violence, obviously, but it is like an inherent genetic in us that sometimes feels really good to express in a way. Not that I like hurting people or anything, more so as an art form, or like a way to transcend something that's like violent and brutal into something that can become inspiring and like an art form.
Yeah, when you're pitting yourself against somebody else in physical combat or any kind of physical activity, there's a certain amount of love and appreciation you have for them, because if they're doing their job right, they're pushing you to challenge yourself and to expose things about yourself to yourself, right? It tells you about who you are as a person, what you can go through, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. I love it.
I totally agree with you. I think there's beauty in it, and there's always something beautiful in the ugly things in life, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
Okay, let's take a second. I'm going to switch tabs here, and because I need to read her name. You are fighting a lady named Daria Zelenskikova. Sorry,
Zelenskikova.
Zelenskakova. So when
Yes.
you were offered her as an opponent, what was your initial thought? Did you know who she was, or did you have to look her up?
I knew who she was. Yeah, I was expecting to run into her at some point this year. So I thought it was a good match initially. We are both strikers by trait, but I'm also an MMA fighter. So
When you say, imagine you wake up on Sunday morning, or maybe you were up all night. I don't know. You had your hand raised in victory at UFC Winnipeg. When you reflect back on that fight, what did a perfect fight look like to you, to Melissa Croden?
like if I'm reflecting on this coming fight.
Yeah, though it's the fight's over. You won. You dominated. You had a great fight. How did you do it? What did it look like?
Um, I think I got to go with the Croden special, which is a TKO finish, because that is just it's becoming my bread and butter. That's something that I just find in fights. I like being able to read the person's body language and capitalizing on breaking them down that way. So I think that's what I'm envisioning. That's what I see happening.
Awesome. My last question, Melissa, is there anything that you hope that I would have asked you to talk about that I didn't ask?
I feel like you asked some really good questions. Yeah, we went a little deep, but not too deep. I didn't get too fluffy this time.
No, it's good. I don't like, I see so many interviews sometimes. It's just the same questions. And a lot of the big media companies, they have like 60 seconds or 90 seconds to talk with somebody. I like just expanding it a little bit, finding out, what makes somebody tick and why they do what they do. And yet you gave some great answers. So thank you very much.
Good. Well, you asked the right questions.
All right. Before we get going, is there any final words you have? Anything you'd like to say? Anyone you'd like to thank?
Tune in April 18th, Winnipeg, Canada. It looks like a good card. We got some heavy hitters, some good Canadian fights. I think the crowd's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to fight in the motherland again.
I'll be there. I'll be watching it live. I can hardly wait. It's going to be one of the best nights of the year. Melissa, thanks for everything and best of luck. All of Canada will be rooting for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Julian, thanks for joining the MMA show. And I'm going to start off right off the very get-go and just give you a massive, huge, incredible congratulations for getting into the UFC.
Thank you very much, my friend. And I know you saw me since I made my comeback in 2023. So you saw everything that happened, And I know you're happy. You're truly happy for me, and I appreciate it. And thanks for always being there and covering up Canadian MMA. We appreciate a lot, and you're doing an amazing job. So thank you.
Well, thank you. But this isn't about me. I appreciate that, but this is about you. The UFC is something that every single fighter watching this interview, that's, if they're not there already, that's where they want to go. But the reality is most of the fighters watching this are not going to make it to the UFC. They'll do well. They'll have a good career, either amateur or professional, and they'll have some successes and some not successes. But to actually compete in the UFC, it's a small percentage. It's like that with any high level sport, whether it's the NFL or NHL. You have all these kids growing up, training for years and years and years, and only some of them make it to the highest level. So for you to get there and achieve such a lifelong dream, you just must be over the moon right now. How were you feeling? What was your first thought when you first found out that, yes, you're getting a shot?
Like I was going, super happy, super excited, going crazy. I was like actually in the middle of the night in Europe, so I was in Holland with the training with Costello Van Steenis, so I could not like scream like a crazy because it was roughly 1 a.m. My manager didn't knew. Well, regardless, he knew or not, I'm happy he called me on the spot, but he thought I was in Canada, so it was like I think 6:40 p.m. in Canada, and he called me, so I couldn't. I called my wife and my parents, but I could not like scream because Costello and his girlfriend and his mom were sleeping in the rooms like right
Yeah.
across me. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, but trust me, I did that night. I didn't sleep at all. I was so excited, so grateful too, and it's been a long road and it's been a lot of work, a lot of ups and downs, but it means everything because it's like I made it. I finally made it. You know what I mean? And that feeling is incredible. It's like all the hard work you did, all your efforts, they finally paid off. Like when you win, for sure, you feel like your hard work that you put in the camp, it paid off. But I mean, being a UFC fighter, it's everything, right? For us,
Hmm.
the MMA fighters. So it was the best feeling for sure.
When the Costello household woke up in the morning, what did you say to them?
Well, I didn't sleep much. I got to bed maybe, like I got to sleep at like roughly 5 a.m. and we had to get up at 8. So anyway, so he got up a little bit before me, and because it's funny because we talked about it the day. Well, I just arrived actually, so I arrived like it was the Monday in the night, and I arrived the Monday morning to Holland. So we were talking about it. That UFC was originally supposed to come to Ottawa. I was like, I think that's my chance. My manager is working hard, blah blah. So I was talking about it, and he was like, "Man, I believe in you." And then I got out of the room, and he was sitting on the couch drinking his coffee, and I look at him, and I open my arms. I'm like, brother. So he just thought I wanted to give him a hug, but I'm like, I'm in the UFC. But he didn't understand. So he gave me a hug. And like, what? I'm like, bro, I'm in the UFC. Like, for real. My manager calls me. Like, he was, what? That's crazy. So he was super happy for me. And Costello is an amazing person. He's an
Hmm.
amazing fighter, but he's a truly an amazing person too. So no, it was great to be there, with them. Of course, I would have wished also to be with my family, but I mean, I was there for a reason, and it
Hmm.
was great, and it started my camp really good. Training with
Hmm.
this beast for 2 weeks. So no, it was just perfect.
I'm guessing you met him at Killcliff MMA in Florida. And of course, he's a PFL champion, highly skilled fighter. I'd like to talk more about that later. But before that, I'm just curious. I often know that fighters are in conversations, some type of conversation with the UFC for years before they ever make it. The UFC finds fighters, they identify them, they think, and they're not sure yet if that fighter is appropriate for the UFC. So maybe they get put on a tough, maybe they get put on a contender series, or maybe they just keep their eyes on you and watch. Did you have any discussions with the UFC leading up to your signing over months or years where they said to you, okay, we like you, but we need to see this, and that from you?
Honestly, no. Like, I mean, I was the only thing I was cut from the Ultimate Fighter, the season that Tommy Teo and that my
Mm.
opponent were on. So they actually took Tommy. It was between me, Tommy, and I think Jonathan Ramsey
Yeah.
for like the Canadian guy that was gonna make it. So they decided to take Tommy, and they actually. I think they flew Ramsey out too. He was an alternate. So me, they
Yeah,
really,
he was the alternate. Yeah.
yeah, so I signed the contract, but I didn't go to Vegas. They cut me right at the end before, like when people were waiting to know if they were getting a flight or
Right.
no. That's when I got cut. So and then I went on and won at Unified against Mark Colker in June of that year. It was 2024, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken. Yeah, and I thought like being 8-2, a big finish. I thought I was gonna get on contenders, but then I think, man, maybe I don't know. Maybe for contenders, they thought I was too old, or I don't know, but it didn't happen. And then that's when I fought Darian Weeks for the belt last year. I won against him. For sure, at the beginning was maybe not my best performance. I started slow a little bit, but still won. And I thought I was gonna get again on contenders, but look, at the end of the day, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. It's even better that I got. It's crazy that I got signed right there. Like in November, my opponent pulled out like 2 weeks before the fight. There was the opponent change, and so I got to fight again. And I was not sure like what was gonna be my future after this. But man, shout out to my manager Stefan Petry. Like he really did a great job, and like I say, to get signed like this without contenders or without Ultimate Fighter, especially at 34 years old. It's amazing. And for sure, I did a lot of hard work, but he did an amazing job too. And once again, thanks to the UFC to give me my shot. And I will show them that they made the right choice.
You're speaking to me from Florida right now, where you're training. I'm guessing at Killcliff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so when you go to Winnipeg, are you going to bring anybody with you? Is like Coach Patrick going to be with you, or anyone else?
Yeah, so it's gonna be my same coaches, Coach Patrick, Coach Martin, Pat Node, right, and from Ottawa. So I'm flying back to Ottawa Saturday.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go do the last week of camp with them. Anyways, the hard week is done. The hard training. I mean, hard training is done. I did an amazing sparring today, Tuesday too. Like, so I feel good. I'm gonna go to back home. I'm gonna just focus on the game plan, just like the cardio, but I mean everything. I feel super good. Honestly, I feel very good. So like I know I just don't want to overtrain, and bad things happen sometimes when you overdo it the week before the fight. So the goal now is just to cruise to the fight and be like in the best shape ever. And I'm bringing also the one I'm bringing from Killcliff, but he's from Killcliff, but from my gym too, is Marc-Andre Barrio. I had the chance to go in this corner a couple of times, and it was important for me to have him, in my corner for my first UFC fight, because we talked about it so much when I was with him. So now it's my turn, and it'll be there for me. So it's gonna be amazing to be me, Patrick, Martin, the four of us together, and Mark. So that the four of us together will be, it will be a good team for Winnipeg for sure.
Awesome. Marc-Andre, of course, is same weight class as you. He's a middleweight, and he is a highly regarded UFC fighter already. He's had numerous fight of the nights and knockouts of the nights and stuff like that. Always exciting. But what I'm curious to know is you've got to spend time with him. You know him quite well. What types of talks do you have with him about the UFC experience, about what he goes through, and if he's helped you at all with what to expect and what to prepare yourself for before your first big fight with you?
Well, so I went in his corner 5 times, right? So it's like, for sure it's not me that's fighting, but we won, we lost. So I was able to really like live the fight week of the UFC 5 times, and it's not 10 years ago. I mean, I went last year in his corner again, so I feel like this prepared me very well for what I'm gonna do for sure. Now it's gonna be my turn to do all the medias, to do the like the photos, everything. But it's every time I was with him, I was going there for him, not for me, but always in the back of my mind, I was wishing that I'd get to experience this one day. So for sure, like being around the UFC like this, I know what to expect. But like I said, now it's just gonna be my time. I never did like a public weigh-in like this, so it's gonna be great, man. I just want to enjoy every step of the way through Saturday the 18th. Like every day, I want to enjoy it as much as I can, and then Saturday 18 is gonna be to go out there and fight really hard, the best that I can, and do an amazing performance for the fans and for the UFC.
Now, let's move on now to your actual fight in Winnipeg on April 18th. You're fighting Robert Valentin. And when you take a look on paper, the two fighters, similar records. He's got a few more losses than you, but he's got a good record and he's a good fighter. But you're in different stages. You are riding a very big high where you've won a whole bunch of fights in a row, some really good fights, and you're going into your first UFC fight. He's got 3 losses in a row. So he's got a lot on the line, right? He's going to be, his back's against the wall. He's going to have to try to put on the performance of a life. What kind of thought process do you and your coaches and your teammates have when you talk about how you're going to get ready for this guy as an opponent?
I know he's gonna come out strong, so he's fighting probably for his contract. He's a good fighter. He's good everywhere. He's got some submissions, some knockouts. He looks like the crazy guy, but at the end of the day, honestly, like, I focus on me. Like, I just know he's gonna come out there really hard, really strong, and he's gonna try to take me out. But I'm ready for him. Trust me, I'm ready. And like I said, I was supposed to be on that Ultimate show. I almost made it. So and it's funny because I've watched the show, of course, right? I've watched Tommy, but I was finding like Robert was like a charismatic, like he was nice, like nice, like not that I like him, but I mean I like his style, and like the crazy guy. So I've watched his fights too, UFC, and like at his defense, yes, he lost 3 in a row, but he fought 3 good guys. Like,
Yeah.
he was not given any gifts in the UFC. So I don't think the losses reflects the fighter that he is, because he's really good, and I know he's training at Extreme Couture with a good camp right now. But like I said, man, if I go up there and I fight like I can, man, it's gonna be a hell of a fight, and that's what I'm gonna do. April 18th, man, I'm coming, and I'm ready for everything. Trust me, I'm ready, really ready for everything. physically, mentally. So let's go.
I'm going to ask you a question. I enjoy asking fighters because I get some really interesting answers. Imagine you have your fight with Robert on the Saturday night on the 18th, and you wake up the next morning. You won your fight. Your arm was raised inside the octagon. You're victorious. When you look back on that fight, would you rather have either knocked him out or submitted him impressively in like the first 10 or 30 seconds of the fight, or would you want to go full 3 rounds, push yourself, challenge yourself, and win the same way, either by knockout or submission in the last 30 seconds of the fight?
I'd say honestly, like I'd say, for sure, like everyone would say probably like, oh, they want the quick knockout. Like everyone would love that. That would be amazing. You get out there, you're not injured, but at the same time, to get a really good fight and to get have some bruises, some war bruises after, and like you really feel like you earn it. Like even though if you train hard, but when you get a really hard fight and you win, it's like you really earn that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for sure, like I don't mind getting a couple bruises on the way.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've seen you after some of your fights, but you might have a few bruises here and there, but you also have the biggest smile. You're always so happy.
Yeah, no, that's the goal, man. To be happy after April 18. You know what I mean? And I know I have everything inside me to beat him. So I just gotta do my job, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, Julian, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I know in Florida you've got a lot on your plate. I just want to say thank you so much. I know that me personally, I'm so very happy you're getting this opportunity. You deserve it. I'm sure everybody else that's watching this is so happy for you too, because it's such a big thing. Last question. Is there anything that you think we should have talked about that I didn't bring up?
Honestly, no. You always have great questions, and thank you for this, my friend. And once again, like the only thing I want to shout out, like I said, I shout out my team, my manager, my sponsors, everyone that support me, but also Samurai MMA that gave me a good platform to perform, and they brought me like they made me fight for the belt against a UFC vet. So I want to shout out Samurai also and all the team, for giving me this push when I needed it. So. Thank you to everyone that supports me since the beginning. Appreciate a lot, and I'm planning on making you guys proud April 18th.
Awesome. There you go, fight friends. Julian Leblanc making his UFC debut April 18th in Winnipeg. I'll be there to watch it in person. I hope you are too. And if so, make sure you come say hi. And if you're not there in person, make sure you watch, because Julian is on a good trajectory, and I'm excited to see where he's going to go in the future. Jamie Siraj, thank you so much for speaking to us. And before we get into anything, I just want to offer you such a massive, huge, wonderful congratulations for making it to the UFC.
Thank you, my man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
This is a long time coming, and I said the same thing to Julian Leblanc a week ago when I spoke with him. He's also fighting in the UFC for the first time. You put in so much of your life and blood, toil, sweat, and tears into this over the past few years. Of course, you had your medical issues that we're not going to get into this time, just based on time. But you have sacrificed so much to get to the point where you are now. I can't even imagine how good you must be feeling.
Yeah, man, I'm over the moon. It's a dream come true, especially to fight in the UFC in Canada, on a Canadian card. It's pretty cool, man. I won't lie. It's a bit surreal. I'm just still kind of taking it all in. I've been so busy with everything going on that I sometimes only get a couple minutes to myself to really sit and be like, whoa, finally happened.
Yeah. And when it comes to a fighter being signed to the UFC, I don't know what casual fans think, but it's not like the UFC just says, "Hey, I want a new fighter. Let's go find somebody," and they find you and boom, you're in. It's they see you and they know who you are and they watch you for a long time and they make sure that you are UFC caliber, that you're ready. So tell me about that. Like, how long have the UFC been aware of you? How long have you been in discussions? I know you've fought in Tough Enough a few times in Vegas, so that's where they're based. How did you get first noticed by them, and how did those discussions go over the years?
I think it kind of goes back pretty far, actually. Prior to my medical problems, I was on a big tear in Canada, 8-2 with 7 finishes, so they were aware of me then, and they wanted to actually sign me to the Contender Series then. My medical problems happened, and then come back, and I came back and fought very stiff competition, after big layoff. And I fought some really high level opponents. And then, I think that kind of just put notice on, you know, the UFC radar that, I'm one of the top guys that are unsigned, in the entire world, at the level of competition that I was fighting. And I really wanted to do that to reiterate and make a statement that, I'm right where I left off, if not better. Um, there was a couple performances in that process that I wasn't the happiest with. I think just finding my groove again, coming back after such a big layoff, I kind of felt like I had to restart my career all over again, So um, now going forward, especially after my last fight, I feel like I finally found my groove again. I feel like I found my stride, and the timing couldn't be perfect, any more perfect, So I'm ready.
And here you are now. You're fresh off a couple submission victories. You looked really good in those fights, and you're fighting in the UFC. How did you get connected this time? Like, at what point did they reach out to you and say, "Hey, just a heads up, we might want to have you on the Winnipeg card"? And then when they finally said, "Yeah, come on, join us,"
It was kind of crazy actually. So not the Thursday just happened. The Thursday before that, I texted my manager and I said, um, "Hey, bro, like I was just actually having a pretty bad day." And I texted him and I said, "Hey, my man, can you please just do your best to try and push for me to get on Contenders this year, man? Like I have a baby and, I got my little man, a family I'm trying to provide for, and I just got to make moves happen." And I was like, I don't know what to do anymore, man. And it was, I was like, not, I just wasn't having the greatest day about the whole MMA landscape of, where I'm at in my career, where I'm at in my life with it. And, fought a lot of high level competition and, it didn't really seem like there was much of a reward for it. So then, 6 hours later, somebody texted me, he said, "Can you make 136?" And I was like, "Oh, is there a pullout?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, that's why I'm texting you." So then I'm like, "Okay, go check the weight." And I'm like, "You know what? It's manageable. We can do it." So then, yeah, I jumped on the opportunity, and it would, Jason House and Lance, they worked their magic, and Sean said yes, and that's kind of how it came together. And I think Sean has watched me for a long time, and there's discussions that I've had with him before, and he, I mean, to my face, told me, "You are a guy that I can put in there with anyone in the world. You're not some young kid that I'm looking to pick up for Contenders." Contenders is kind of like that show for those young kids that like to go out there and bang and and have 6 to 10 fights. That's just I'm 17 fight veteran. I'm not a Contender Series guy. And he told me that. He said, "You're a UFC guy." So he just said, "You got to be ready for these opportunities." And luckily, I always have so many training partners that I hold myself accountable for. So I was in shape, I'm ready to go, and yeah, the call was mine.
That's incredible. When you got that offer to fight at 136, what was your weight around that time?
It was just like a high 50. To be honest, like I've never been a huge featherweight. I always knew I could make 135. I don't cut a lot of weight to make 45. I could make 45 on 2 weeks notice anytime.
Okay.
I just chose to fight up 45 because, to be honest, a lot of, even when I came back, I tried to get a couple 35 fights. It honestly just looked impossible for me to get 35 fights outside the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of always had it in my head that if I got back, if I got in the UFC, that I would go down to 35. So this just kind of fast tracked that process. It was manageable. I'll put it that way.
Awesome. For fans who might be being introduced to you for the first time, take a minute and just describe your fighting style. What are they going to see when you get inside a cage to fight?
I pride myself on just being so well-rounded. I can strike as well as I can wrestle, as well as I can grapple. And I feel like I'm world class in every discipline separately. I have world class boxing, I have world class wrestling, I have world class jujitsu. I test my black belt against any MMA fighter out there in my division. And I feel that I bring a very violent style as well. I'm very technical till I get you in vulnerable spots. And then I have a lot of killer instinct, and I like to go out there. I like to finish my fights, whether that's a submission or a knockout. I look to go out there, push the pace, and really hurt my opponent. And that's what I'm looking to do in this fight as well. I'm looking to go out there, make a statement right away, right off the first bell. And, this guy could have been ready for this date. I can guarantee you he cannot keep up with my pace. He can't keep up with my power. Can't keep up with my conditioning, my technique, my wrestling, my jiu-jitsu, my kickboxing, my clinch, everything. I'm just going to bring a very violent, high-paced fight to him.
Now, when you say him, you're talking, of course, about John Yanis, an American fighter you'll be fighting. He's coming off a loss, so he's going to have a lot to prove, and he's not going to want to lose on foreign territory for him. Talk about him as an opponent. Like, were you aware of him when you were given the name?
I've watched a couple of the Fury cards before. So I've seen him fight before. I always thought, to be honest, I like his style. He comes out there to bang. He comes out there to throw heavy hands. He's got a really good left hand. He's got good power. He's got good striking overall. He's a very great opponent. One of the best guys I've fought so far. Not taking him lightly. I know he trains with good guys, and he's in the UFC for a reason, So, I think he's a really great opponent, but with that being said, he's not enough.
When you right now you're still at home in BC. We're talking, you're frantically packing, and so I appreciate you taking all this time to get ready and chat with me. When you get to Winnipeg, have you thought yet about what you're going to do when you get your feet on the ground? It's going to be a whirlwind. The UFC is going to have a lot of requirements and commitments for you. You're going to have to take photos and sign posters and all that kind of stuff. So every time I talk to a fighter who has had their first UFC experience, they all say the same thing. It's that they wish they had slowed down and just paid more attention to what's been happening, because like a couple of days after the whole thing's over, they don't remember much of it because just so much happened. Have you given any thought about just what you're going to be thinking when you finally get your feet on the ground there in Winnipeg?
Just trying to be present through it all. I think a younger version of myself could have gotten really overwhelmed with this whole process, and so much to do and the excitement. I feel like as I've matured as a man, I don't look at this as like some kid who's like, oh, I'm living out a fantasy, at the end of the day, when I started this sport, I started this sport because I wanted to become a UFC world champion, and going there and just being a part of the show. I think one of the biggest things that I can take for myself is to not force anything. Don't force being excited. Don't force being nervous. Whatever is going to come, and I'm going to deal with it as it comes. I feel extremely calm about the whole situation right now. I feel like I deserve to be here. I feel like I'm meant to be here. So I think that just brings a lot of confidence to how I'm dealing with this situation. At the end of the day, it's the UFC, but this is still just cage fighting, and I've been doing that my whole life. This, to be honest, my nerves about it, I want to win this fight just as much as I wanted to win any one of my regional fights, any one of my amateur fights. I've always taken my career very seriously. So it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. It's the same act in a different environment. So I'm just really kind of keeping my head down and staying focused on the task at hand. I'm not answering 100,000 messages on social media and, accepting the praise like, oh, you made it to the UFC. Making it to the UFC alone isn't enough for me. I want to go out there and accomplish my goal. So, I think the best thing I can do right now is just keep my head on my shoulders and stay calm and just stay focused on the task at hand. And that's John Yanis, because he deserves every bit of my respect.
100%. I like playing off my interview subjects, what the things they say, and I like moving on from a nugget of an idea they give me. And just the way you were talking about how a UFC fight is just the same as any other fight. It reminds me of a movie called Hoosiers. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, if you've ever seen it.
No, I haven't. No.
Hoosiers. It was I think from the 80s, and it was about a small a town basketball team in the 1950s, I think it was, and the actor Gene Hackman played the coach. And then these kids, this team, like 5 players, whatever, and they were tearing it up everywhere. They were the champions where they were in small town Indiana. And they finally made it to some sort of championship game. And I'll probably get some of this wrong, but when they traveled to the big city to fight the big city team, or sorry, to play against the big city team, they walked into this vast stadium. It was like a huge basketball court, and there were bleachers and stands everywhere for thousands and thousands of people. And you could tell the kids, the boys, the high school boys, were just in shock. They were looking around. They like, oh, do we belong here? This is so crazy. And Gene Hackman, the coach, he pulled out a tape measure and he measured from the floor to the net. And he said, look, 10 feet, just like home. And he measured from, the center line to the end of the court, whatever, however far that is. He goes, see, just like home. This is just another game. And of course, they went on to win the game. So that kind of reminds me of what you said.
That sounds a lot like where my mentality is, and I've wanted to win this fight just as much as I've wanted to win any other fight I've been a part of, so I'm not going to add that extra pressure on myself that's, because it's the UFC, at the end of the day, this is a lifelong dream, but the dream I asked for is a hard dream, it's not easy, it's not easy being a cage fighter. It's not for a living. It's not easy. My fights are only going to get harder from here. So I think it just actually requires more discipline and more focus and keeping my head down more than I ever have. To be honest, I feel that's the best way I can go about this.
You have a strong association with the Battlefield Fight League. You've fought there a whole bunch of times. I don't even know how many at this point. And they're very supportive. They've always been very supportive of their fighters if they get a big opportunity like this. I saw an interview with you from a week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was Jay Golshani was talking to you, and he asked you this very question. He posed it to you. He said, what happens if, the UFC calls you up? And just the way you answered it made me sound like at the time you knew this was probably going to be happening. So I'm just wondering about the timeline. Like, how long have you been aware that this was going to happen possibly?
At that time, I didn't actually know. I didn't know. I'm optimistic always, I'm always an optimist. I always feel, I did say to everyone before my last fight, I said, I know I'm going to perform in this fight like I know I can, and I'm going to get signed to either Contender Series or the UFC. I did say that, and I was reiterating that. But it's one thing to think that, and it's another thing for it to happen. So it was. I didn't know at the time, but I was hopeful, and and it just. I was staying ready for the Dennis Bazukia Mauricio Barboza fight at 45 because that's kind of what it sounded like was our only shot if that fight fell through. And then this one came up, and like I said, I've always been a person that can make bantamweight. I just didn't do it because, well, to be honest, I'm a grown man. I don't need to go on a diet to be able to kick someone's ass. If someone were to come up to me in the street and be like, hey, I'm going to beat the shit out of you right now, I wouldn't ask them, well, hold on a sec, what do you weigh? I'm throwing down with whoever. I've fought massive 145ers, and I've fought massive 145ers before, and I took care of them as well. So it doesn't matter. I've always known that 35 would be the optimal weight class, but
excuse me,
did 45 because, to be honest, if you're not going to pay me big money, why would I want to kill myself to make weight? I can go beat guys that are bigger than me anyways, So I'm not, I always knew 35 was the real division that I could become a champion in.
Well, and this will be the true test. I mean, you'll get this fight under your belt, and you'll get a better appreciation, a better idea of what it takes to get down to that weight class, and how your body performs when you're down there. So I guess the time will tell.
Yeah.
So Jamie, who's your manager?
Jason House.
Okay, so,
Jason House and Lance Spade from Ridium.
Yeah. So when Jason called you or messaged you and said, "Hey, congrats, you made it," you were probably over the moon, and I'm willing to bet you shared it with a handful of people. Everyone's got a small circle. They talk to your coaches, your partner. What were the reactions of everybody in your small circle when you broke the news to them?
I think it was a big surprise for everybody. There's been. Jason always reiterated me that it was going to happen, but some situations that I missed out on, that I'm like, that would have been perfect. And then, and then I felt like after I lost to Diego Brandao and I just underperformed in that fight, I was like, I got to redo. I'm like, do I have to go on another 9-fight win streak again?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have the time to do, it sounds like whatever, but that was some of my thought process after I fought Diego, and I was like, oh man, do I have to do this whole thing all over again? And then I got brought in to get my ass kicked against a 155er who's, I'll be real, juiced out of his mind. And I had to do that in front of Sean Shelby, and Sean watched that fight and he's like, man, that was a rough fight for you. And I'm like, fuck, I can just tell by the words he's using, he didn't like that fight. So I literally was like, I'm gonna put everything into this next fight. I took that fight on short notice. And I wasn't training. I had a bad injury that I was recovering from, and it was a time in life where I'm like, I honestly need the money. And I was actually supposed to fight Trevin Jones originally on that card. Had to pull out with an injury. And then last minute they called me for the card, and then I was like, okay, I'll do it. But I shouldn't have been in there that night. That's just being honest. And I still found a way to get the win, against a 45 veteran. I still finished him. And then my next fight going in, there was a couple pullouts. They gave me a really good opponent on short notice, and he wanted 150. So I just agreed to it, and then, smashed him and, made it look easy.
We hear all the time the UFC looks for certain attributes in their fighters, and one of them just being game. I mean, being game is a phrase that we understand in the fight game, but other people might not realize what it means. But just game means you're good to go, you're ready, you're eager, you're not going to stop, you're just a hardcore guy, and that's what they love. I'm sure that's what swayed them to sign you on for this Winnipeg card.
Yeah, I know this about Sean. He's been told very good things about matchmakers that have worked with me, about, Tough Enough has given me a list of, I won't lie, they've given me a list of some very hard fights, and some fights that my management even said, like, we don't have to take this. This is a really risky fight. This is a really hard fight, specifically with the Namat Abrashidov. My management knew that it's probably best that I'm at 35. And I'm going to fight one of the biggest 45ers probably on the planet right now. Like, that was just huge. And they're like, he's just a knockout artist with heavy hands. We don't like this fight. And I'm the type of person that if you tell me that you don't like a matchup for me, that automatically puts a chip on my shoulder. And now I'm like, okay, well, I don't know why I'm like that, but it just does. Like, anyone, I could look at a 55er and be completely unthreatened by him. But then if someone tells me, like, yeah, you don't want to fight that guy, I'm like, yeah, you think so? I bet you I could get him, So that's just, my brain works in crazy ways sometimes, but that's just the truth. I was like, okay, let's see what's up. And, I stopped him, I finished him, and honestly, apart from the first round, I dominated him. So I won't lie. I carry a pretty heavy chip on my shoulder when it comes to fighting. I've picked a lot of fights. I've picked a lot of fights with people that, Luke Riley is one person that before he got signed, I was hounding that guy to fight. I was telling Cage Warriors, I literally messaged him and said, you don't have to pay me a dime. I'll come there and fight him in his backyard. And I just want to prove, and now we're in different divisions, so it's all good.
Yeah. different divisions for now. But anyway, I love hearing all that. I love how eager you are, and you just love it. And I think that's really necessary if you want to be successful. You can't have any shred of doubt whatsoever about your abilities when you go into a fight like that, because if you go in thinking like, oh, I don't know if I'll do it, or if this guy's better than me, you just have to have a positive mindset. You have to do that. You might win a fight or two with another kind of mindset, but if you want to succeed and get to where you are, you have to know that you can kick some serious ass.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'm learning later in my career is that I used to think that when I accepted a fight, I had to be overly confident, or I had to be like hyped up about it or whatever. And now I just look at it as like a very level-headed approach. I'm like, there's flaws in his game. I can exploit this.
Mm-hmm.
I can exploit that. I'm better than him here. And I like to believe that I'm so well-rounded that there's no one on the planet that there's, a route that I can't beat them with. I can beat you if you're a better wrestler than me. I can use my jiu-jitsu and my kickboxing. If you're a better kickboxer than me, I'll use my tight technical stand-up to close distance safely, get you on the ground, maul you on the ground. If you get back up, I'm really good at hitting people on those like in-betweens and
The
stuff.
transitions, yeah.
So I'm a very well-rounded MMA fighter. I've been doing MMA now for 17 years. So,
Wow.
I'm pretty damn technical. So, I mean, I got a lot of tricks up my sleeve and a lot of tricks up my sleeve that I believe some of the caliber of opponents I've fought haven't brought out of me. But, now being in the UFC, the matchup, they're only going to get harder. And I thrive when I'm in those harder fights and those tougher fights.
Are you still training with Dennis King?
Yeah. I off and on see Dennis, not as much. I'm mostly just over at DS Combat Sports with my guys over there now. Training a lot with Radley Silva, training with Jay Johnsey over at WKX. It's been a really solid training camp over here, and not to mention just Radley Silva is such a world-class training partner.
He's awesome.
That, such a world-class training partner that he's so well-rounded too that he can give me any look I need for anyone. He's so good at like mimicking opponents, copying the aesthetic of how they move and stuff like that. So, I feel like I have a world-class team with all my guys at Diaz. We got a lot of my up-and-coming guys right now. I got a guy who's injured on the shelf right now, Case Huseman, Irfan. We got a lot of good guys coming and cross-train with us. Josh Kikowski, Ali Wazook, so a lot of top featherweights, a lot of top bantamweights coming into our room. And, it's great atmosphere. And plus all the looks that I can get over at WKX with just all the world-class strikers over there.
Fantastic. When you are game planning for a fight of this caliber, of this magnitude for your career, is it mostly you who's taking a look at John Yanis, or do you have your coaches are formulating a game plan for you, or is it more collaborative?
Collaborative. I definitely, I'm not a spring chicken in the game. I can look at someone and see where I have the upper hand. I can see where they're dangerous and just approach it objectively. I don't have an ego when it comes to fighting. I have an ego in the sense I want to win, but I don't have an ego about if you're a better striker, I'll take you down. Mm-hmm. This matchup is kind of different because I feel truthfully I'm better than him everywhere. So I'm just going to see, but I'm not going to be rushed to get this fight to the ground at all. I'll strike with him, I'll wrestle with him, I'll grapple with him, and I'll say this: he has definitely never felt someone as strong as me in that cage. Mm-hmm. And I mean that with everybody he's fought. I am a mauler, and when people see what explosive strength and technique I bring to 135 again, this is I think this is the division I thrive in.
I think I just found my favorite soundbite for this interview right there.
Man, I'm dangerous. I'm very dangerous.
Okay, Jamie, man, I'm thrilled that you, excuse me, pardon me. Sorry, I'm thrilled you're getting a shot. Finally, it's a long time coming. It's well deserved. I'll be in Winnipeg, so hopefully I get to meet you in person, say hi. And
yes, sir.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Congratulations on everything. Wish you the best of luck. Before we go, last question: is there anything that you want to talk about that I didn't bring up?
No. I just want to thank my sponsors: PDB Incorporated, Sean Singh, SX Strips. My team, DS Combat Sports, for just holding it down. My training partners, my coaches, and my amazing fiance, Kaylee Dodds. She's just the best mom to our little boy, and she's just my rock in life. And I legitimately could not do this without her. She stopped me from retiring this year, and I love that woman more than anything in this world. And she's everything to me.
Amazing. That makes me happy to hear. I'm so happy for you and for everything. Jamie,
Thank you.
thank you for speaking with us, and best of luck in Winnipeg.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Chris Horodecki, I'm very happy to be able to speak with you. I think we've done one interview before, but that was probably like at least a good 15 years ago or so. So now you've retired. You used to be a pro fighter, really well regarded, one of Canada's best fighters out of Team Tompkins in London, Ontario. And now you've really expanded your role. I've seen you in the cage a bunch of times as a ring announcer. You have all these fancy suits with a microphone, and now you're putting on a show this Saturday in London. Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, what's up, Andy? Yes, it's been a long time. We've been good friends for a long time, and we've seen each other at the fights and interviewed about my career in the past, and we spoke about the fights that were happening that we were both there at. You were broadcasting and documenting, and I was announcing or coaching or commentating. And then this time it's myself and Reno Belcastro, Mark and Sam, and we're putting together Rising Stars Next Generation live this Saturday, April 18th in London, Ontario at the Marconi Club.
That's incredible. So it's just to confirm, it's all amateur, right?
It's all amateur. So it's the first time ever in the Forest City in London, Ontario, that you're going to be having both kickboxing in a cage and MMA on the same card. So it's a very unique concept. It's been done before in other organizations, but this is the first time that it's ever happening in London, Ontario. And it's a pleasure to be able to do that and give that to the fans, because you're combining, I believe kickboxing is probably the most exciting sport on the planet, and then you're combining that with MMA and you're putting it in the cage. It's going to be wicked night.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a big proponent of amateur mixed martial arts. I've always loved it. I've always supported it. That's how you get started, right? Like, even though they weren't amateur, I interviewed so many fighters when they were at the start of their career, so basically amateur, and now they're fighting in the UFC and stuff like that. So fans, when they get an opportunity like this, they should really jump on it, because they can go and see some fighters at the ground level of their fight career, and who knows where they're going to go.
No, exactly. This is, grassroots mixed martial arts, grassroots kickboxing. And also another benefit of this is, I like my fighters at Adrenaline. We try to really push, getting into a contact match before jumping into full out MMA. So getting in some kickboxing exhibition, some boxing experience. But this is really like the next step, right? This is that transition phase of going from kickboxing, from the striking art, into that cage where you have to work with the angles. You have to work with, cutting off the cage a little bit different. And also you don't have the rope. So there's actually no give.
That's better.
There we go. I can hear you loud and clear now. Loud and clear. So basically that transition when people are getting ready to compete in the mixed martial arts cage, getting that transition of being able to fight in a cage, but also getting used to that contact, which is what kickboxing does. It kind of prepares people, because you can do all the grappling tournaments, the wrestling tournaments, but when you're actually in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the battle, and you feel the contact and see how your body's going to react. It's different than sparring. It's different than, all the drilling that you do. When you actually get hit and you feel that and your eyes water and you got to dig deep and find that dog in you to come out. That's what really makes you realize, is this sport for me or am I not there? So this is a good transition. A lot of our guys that want to be, potentially step into the MMA cage. This is a good transition. As well as we have a bunch of mixed martial arts battles that are happening, a couple title fights, some of our up and comers coming up as well. So we're really putting the Forest City, back on the map, bringing something unique. We have a very strong sports background here in London, Ontario. From hockey to, and to the fighting game. And it's great to be able to be a part of that and to get people hype about that in the city.
I think it's a really smart idea too. Of course, you mentioned Adrenaline a few minutes ago. That's of course Adrenaline MMA. You're one of the co-owners of there in London, Ontario, with Mark Tompkins, Sam Stout, sorry. And I'm not sure if Chris Clements is part owner as well, but you're basically an extension of the legendary Team Tompkins that, that tragically ended, but you rose from the ashes and you've got your own gym. This is a great opportunity for you to just get an opportunity for all your fighters, all your students to be able to get in there and get in the cage, get some experience.
Yeah, I know. It's great. Like the background that Sean left us and the background that what he instilled in us. We continue to carry that flag. We've continued to wave that flag to this day. We honor and respect those that paved the way for us, and the relationship that myself, Sam, Mark, Chris Clements, Chad Laprise, Jesse Ronson, we all had with Sean. It was huge, man. It was huge. And so we continue to fly that flag. We continue to honor his name for the direction that he was able to steer our lives. And it's great for these up and comers to be able to get that opportunity to fight. We were very, very heavily, we did the exhibitions for a long time, and that was something that we really built a lot of experience in ourselves and on our athletes. And now we're just taking it to the next level. We're working with the Ontario Athletic Commission. We're combining two different sports on one night. So it's really like the next progression of where we want our athletes and ourselves to go.
That's awesome. Before I continue, I need to do an in-video edit. Did I call him Mark Tompkins? I think I might have said Mark.
You did.
Oh yeah, I meant to say Mark Hominick, of course. Brain fart.
You said Mark Tompkins and maybe Sam Hominick. Sean, and yeah, you just said Sean Stout.
Yeah, but then I correct Sam Stout. Okay.
Nice catch. You caught it.
It was going through my mind when you were talking. I could barely concentrate, but we're good now, I hope. Please don't hate me, Mark and Sam.
Yeah, excellent, man. No, mistakes happen, bro. It's all good.
So Rising Stars, it's not just in London. Of course, you mentioned Reno Belcastro. He's from MTC in Windsor. Talk about the origin of Rising Stars and how this got started. Who initiated it? How those conversations happened?
Yeah, so it's basically Reno Belcastro. He approached us with this idea of putting an MMA sanctioned show. He was able to get a couple kickboxing shows put on first, and then an MMA one as well. I worked there. I think I did the commentary for his first show. I did the MC for his show in February, and then basically we've collaborated. Our team and his team, MTC, Maximum Training Center, Adrenaline MMA in London, Ontario, and we're putting together this hybrid show. And yeah, we're ready to hit the road too. So we did Windsor, we're doing London, we're going to Brantford in May, at the end of May. So making our way back to Windsor in June, July, and then we're going to be doing something cool too. We're going to be also doing in the early fall, we're going to do a hybrid kickboxing show with the boys over at Boomers Boxing. So again, another local London, staple in this town, Boomers, and we're going to be teaming up and just kind of bringing some cool things, some cool concepts to people, and just changing the perspective about also doing it the martial arts way, which is sometimes some shows miss that, right? The honoring of the sport, honoring of the people, honoring of the coaches and the teams and the people that have paved the path, right? And we live by that martial arts mentality, and we live by the, that code of honesty, integrity, discipline, and respect.
That's a great code to follow. Of course, everybody who's been involved with martial arts of really any form knows how much they can benefit from it. Their children can benefit from it. As even moving on to adulthood, it's just so good for you overall, for your physical fitness, for your mental health, everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we talked very briefly.
Absolutely.
We talked very briefly before we started recording about the amateur landscape in Ontario right now. Just to catch everyone up until January 1st, it was last year or the year before, I don't remember, I'm sorry, amateur was re-legalized in Ontario, and that essentially opened the floodgates, and it seems like everybody's putting on an amateur MMA show these days, or I should narrow that down a little better. They're trying to put on MMA shows. I think a lot of promoters are having a hard time finding enough amateur fighters to compete. Is that been a challenge for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's a saturated market right now because everyone thinks that it's something that, it's a cash cow, but there's only so many fighters. We're having to, it's a fighter's market by all means, right? If you can't compete this weekend, okay, I can compete next weekend. If I can't make next weekend, well, guess what? There's a show not too far away. And the pool is pretty much the same. So that's why we had to kind of, circulate around. We were, the previous Rising Stars, we had a bunch of athletes from Quebec, from Montreal compete. In And this show, we're actually pulling from Chicago, Illinois. We got a fighter for our main event, Hector Salazar from Real Movement and Martial Arts Academy. Joey Deal. He's a good friend of mine from the Jeff Curran days, where myself and Sam and Mark and we were all very close. And I still stay in contact. I have family in Chicago, so I still stay in contact with these guys all the time. But yeah, we're bringing down some Yankees to fight us in the main event. It's definitely a fighter's market. They can pick wherever, whenever they want to fight. The thing is that we try to pride ourselves, treating the fighters right. We treat the coaches and the teams the way that they should be, and I'm going to make it an experience for the fighters that is going to be a memorable one, and they're going to feel that professionalism. They're going to feel that in the production and the crowd and in the venue and everything. So it's kind of the complete package, right? You're not only selling it to the fans, but you're also selling it at this time to the fighters to be able to compete for you. So it takes a lot of work and it's a lot of moving pieces, but the product's going to speak for itself.
Awesome. It's a shame I can't be there. Unfortunately, it's the same night as the UFC fight night in Winnipeg, which I'll be attending. Otherwise, I would have made the drive up to London for sure. Chris,
we would love to have you there, Andy.
Yeah,
we would love to have you there. The show is actually an late afternoon, early evening show. So our main card, our fights start at 5 p.m. Doors open at 4 p.m. Just so that everybody can go watch the UFC live in Winnipeg. It's always a big deal whenever the UFC comes to Canada. And also, when we have some of the top fighters in our country, such as Mike Malott fighting in the main event, versus Gilbert Burns, everyone's going to be on lockdown watching that fight. So we're making sure that everyone has the opportunity to watch both fights. They can get down to Rising Stars and have a little quick break and head right over to watch the big UFC Canada after.
Everyone loves a fight night. All right, Chris.
Everyone loves a fight night.
Let's move away from Rising Stars for a moment. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind talking about you. I really want to catch up with you and let everyone else know what's been going on with you. So just to catch everyone up, we've got a lot of newer fans here, a lot of younger fans. So you are one of Canada's MMA legends. You came up, like I mentioned, with Sean Tompkins at Team Tompkins in London. Very experienced. You fought in the IFL. You fought Donald Cerrone. You fought in the WEC. You did extremely well in your career. Now that those days are past, tell me what life's like for you. What have you been up to?
Life's great, man. I kind of bounced back and forth between Sarnia, Ontario and London, Ontario. Very much involved with coaching in the gym and working with, the fighters at the gym. I've been able to get into a bit of an announcing role, so that's kind of not a very common jump. A lot of fighters go into coaching post-career. A lot of fighters, a handful go into commentary. Not too many, but there's a certain amount for color commentary. Not too many go into the announcing, but I love it. So like I said, I got into doing the announcing at the exhibitions that we put together, and then kind of got that opportunity with BTC to do that. Now I'm able to go down to the States. I'm doing the announcing for the Jeff Curran Invitational down in Chicago, Illinois, just outside northwest suburbs there in Chicago. So yeah, just kind of doing that, staying involved in the games, keeping my mind and my passion, and that's it. Like, it's kind of hard, to be able to stay active. I still train all the time. I got my first degree black belt under James Hort and George Brito this past.
Congratulations.
It was a few months ago. Yeah. So not that long ago. When did I get that? Maybe February. Yeah. So yeah, it's been, I'm always staying in the game. Few injuries, got a couple nagging injuries that are bothering me. We're going to take care of that this year and keep the body healthy. But it's important. It's very important to take care of yourself and the stuff that, you wish you knew, and certain things that you could have changed, and you try to bring that to your fighters. So we got guys, we're trying to bring that to that little bit of education that, we had to learn the hard way, and people now can learn that from our mistakes and learn how to get better from that.
For sure. Do you ever miss fighting?
Oh, I miss it all the time, man. I miss the camaraderie, the team, we still have that from a different aspect, but the preparation, the traveling for the battle, the unity of the squad that we had, the adrenaline rush. But yeah, the thing that fighting, it's a very selfish game. You need to be 100% dialed in, 100% concerned about yourself. And realistically, at that time, when you're in a cage, your whole life, when you decided to take that, the whole lead up to being in the cage, your whole life has to circulate around that. Everything you put in your body, everything that you do in and out, and your training and the recovery and the things you can and can't do, right? So, I miss it. I love it, and everything. A lot of opportunities in my life have come up because of it. Not only it, but because of the fighting. So it's definitely a huge part of my life and always will be.
Yeah, that's amazing. You had a great run, some good times. Life was much simpler back then it seems. The MMA landscape has changed a whole lot, but it's still it's more popular than ever, and I'm loving it. And I wish you the best of luck with Rising Stars this Saturday.
Hey, thank you, Andy. I appreciate you taking the time this Saturday before the UFC in Winnipeg. Rising Stars MMA, the next generation. Kickboxing in a cage, MMA. It's happening in London, Ontario. Can't wait to see everybody there. Thank you again, MMA Handy. And we'll be in touch, man.
And you said you're mostly sold out, right? A couple tickets left, maybe?
Yeah, we're pretty much sold out. There's some tickets straggling around, but it's going to be completely sold out.
Is it going to be streamed?
But we'll be able to catch everything. Potentially right now, I'm just maybe going to have it streamed. If not, everything will be posted the following week on YouTube. We're going to be dropping those videos and get the people hyped up.
Awesome. Well, Chris, the Polish Hammer, it was great speaking with you, and looking forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Appreciate it, brother. Take care. Talk soon. Thank you for taking the time.